Hey guys, so in this video we are reviewing a set of AC servicing tools for automotives, and this is the Pittsburgh R134a AC Manifold Gauge Set. And this is the Pittsburgh 2.5 CFM vacuum pump, single stage. And I bought this set because I need to service both my wife's Ford Mustang, it's a 2015 year model, and I also need to check on the AC's condition, the compressor's condition on my Honda Clarity, which is a 2018 year model. My wife's car is actually more prone to issues because I had to actually put in the refrigerant for her car for at least 3 times now. And I thought, okay, maybe it's time to properly service her car by using the vacuum pump to pump out the air and the moisture if there's any in her AC compressor on her Mustang. And then we're also gonna use a manifold gauge to check on the proper pressure for her AC compressor or the AC system in her car. That's the reason I bought this set. This is $94 without any coupons. This is $5 or $69 without any coupons. If they are on sale, they're usually about 20% off or $20 to $25 off. So you can get them for really good price if they're on sale. Unfortunately, the AC is having issues now, and I can't wait for them to be on sale, and I bought them at full retail price. Out of the door, it's about $175 with tax. So it's not a very cheap set. And I believe you can get them on Amazon, similar, comparable set of vacuum pump and the manifold gauge on Amazon for only a little more than $100, like $20. So I'll post a link on where you can buy them on Amazon if you don't want to wait. Amazon is actually usually probably quicker when they ship it to you next day, okay? But this is $175, so quite a lot more expensive. And if you don't know, Harbor Freight is kind of like the cheap hardware store for cheap tools. And those are definitely not the most expensive tool that you can get, okay? This vacuum pump is $100, and again, it's on the cheap to medium price kind of end for a single stage pump. And I'm just gonna take everything out. So it does come with a high vacuum oil. I don't know what high means, high quality maybe. So it's enough oil to get you started for the vacuum pump. And this is the vacuum pump itself. I mean, it's quite heavy. And it's, again, pumps up to 75 microns maximum vacuum rating, or 10 Pascal, and it's got thermal overload protection, so if it overheats, it probably turns itself off. And it's fairly compact, and it's also got some heft to it. 120 volt, 60 hertz. The pump is actually in terms of horsepower, it's 1/8 horsepower. So very, very low, like low power pump. So it's not the best pump, by any standards, but it works. All right. I'll post a spec specifications sheet on the screen for you guys. But this is pretty much there is to the pump, and we put the pump aside. And we take a look at the gauge set. Now, before I'm actually gonna go service or check on the pressure in my AC system, I will actually put the oil in the pump and use the vacuum pump to actually test the gauge itself before we start anything, okay? So see if it actually works. And it doesn't look like the design has changed much. I did look at some of the YouTube videos on the exact same model of the pump that came out from 3-4 years ago. This is year 2023, and I'm buying this pump in year 2023. So if you guys have an older pump and you want to upgrade, it's a good time to also take a look. Extremely cheap case. This case feels like it's so cheap, and yeah, it's just a cheap case. Very cheaply made and interesting. This is what came with the pump. You have a hose set, low pressure, high pressure at the vacuum line. It's rated for R134a, and also I believe the fittings are for R134a. So this is purely targeted for automotive service. So pretty much servicing your car, okay? And we'll put the hose aside. There is a simple instruction manual over here. You have your gauge right here. It's not assembled yet, okay? Aluminum gauge, okay? And this part, the black part is plastic. I'm sorry, it's rubber to protect the casing. The cover piece, the screen, is actually plastic. Now, I haven't seen any other manufacturers, including the high quality, the high-end manufacturers, using glass, casing or the screen anymore, because again, this is probably for safety reasons. The glass, if it shatters, is gonna create a big mess. So most of those screens are gonna be plastic, acrylic, whatnot. And this is removable, it looks like. So, and again, it's a very pliable, protective cover to protect the two gauges for the low and high end. The gauge has got ratings for R134a and R407c and R404a. So again, purely targeted for automotive service. The two quick disconnectors are made with aluminum. It's not brass, it's aluminum casting. And again, this is for the low end, low pressure end. This is for the high pressure end that connects to your car. The gauge itself has got two resting points for when you don't need to use those connectors. You can just rest them over here. Okay, and so those two are not connected to anything. It's just a resting point, and it looks like it fits on there perfectly fine. And this is for vacuum line, and again, the low line and the high line. They all got this kind of like a curved, pressure fitted area. The connector themselves are actually brass, and I want to know if this handle is plastic. Yes, so the handle is plastic. It's not metal as pictured on their website. This is a plastic handle. All right. So in terms of build quality, I don't know if it's gonna last. Hopefully it lasts. But the good thing with plastic handle is it gets exceptionally cold. So I guess if you need to turn this knob, like during the testing process when the actual refrigerant is flowing, this wouldn't burn, like frostbite your hand, right? So that could be the plus side. The downside is the build quality is questionable. And so those fittings, I'm gonna actually just connect those fittings off camera. And once I have everything connected, I'm gonna pour the oil into the vacuum pump, because right now it's actually empty. There's nothing in the vacuum pump, no oil in here. Yep, it's pretty much empty. At least I think they tested it and they poured all the oil out. And I gotta pour those oil in there. And when you pour the oil, just make sure it aligns with the oil level, and you plug the plug, and it should start pumping oil. It's got, again, since this is all designed for automotive, both of those units at Harbor Freight is at the automotive section, so you could assume that it's got a connector for the vacuum line right here that you can plug into. Alright guys, I just read the instruction and I think there is something extremely important for you to check before you start even connecting the hose to the vacuum pump. I'm not saying the build quality of those hoses are really low, but I was checking on the components in here, and by the way, the gauge comes with a colored instruction and a user manual. The user manual is actually flawed. There are some components that they said are there are actually not there and marked, so it's very confusing. I would suggest just ditch this and use this colored guide to help you guide through the pressure check, the recovery, or the recharge process. It's very simple and straightforward. You just need to follow these steps. Step 1, Step 2, Step 3, Step 4, and Step 5. Follow the numbers and you'll be totally fine. Another note is the counterclockwise and clockwise direction doesn't necessarily mean the counterclockwise doesn't mean it's open, it doesn't mean it's closed. It really depends on where it is on the knob, okay? So for example, over here on the main manifold, if you turn clockwise, it's closing. And if on the, where is the little knob? Let's try to find, so on here, if you turn clockwise, it's actually open. So it's kind of confusing, but you get used to it. When you turn it for a few times and when you service it for a few times, then you can remember which way is open, which way is closed. If you're very confused by that, again, follow the colored instruction. This manual is confusing and some components are missing. Don't use the manual, okay? So that's my tip number 1. Tip number 2, double check on all the connectors and look inside. Usually there is a little green colored rubber piece in here, okay? The green colored rubber piece is usually in here, and this one is very easy to see on this end that's curved, okay? You can see the green piece. They are different sizes. This is a 1/4 inch connector size. This is a 1/2 inch connector size. The vacuum line is bigger. The rest of the 2 lines are actually smaller. But I was checking my vacuum line. I looked inside. If you can see, one end had the little green tip and the other doesn't. And I looked around in the case and look what I found. There is a little green piece just resting over there, like hidden inside the case. That was not very obvious. Now, if you actually just connected this piece directly, you're gonna have a leaky line when you're testing your AC. So make sure you double check all the internals and make sure this little green piece, which again is a seal, is situated in there. Mine was not, and that was really dangerous, okay? So double check that. Now, I think I've told you all the important things there is to it. The next, I'm just gonna go ahead and pour some of those, the first batch of what is it called? The high vacuum oil. Should be a premium quality vacuum oil if they want to call it correct. But we're just gonna pour some of this in here and make sure it is at the proper level. Now, I don't have my camera like on eye level, but I'm just telling you it's very easy to do. Just make sure you pour the correct amount of oil in here to the line, okay? Preferably using a funnel. I don't have one, and I'm just gonna do that this way. Now, I think it needs 200 milliliters. So this thing requires 200 milliliters of oil, and over here is about 250 milliliters. So basically this is one shot, okay? So I guess once it gets dirty, you'll want to replace the oil, but over here is is almost correct amount of oil that's required. And the oil level hasn't rised up yet. And now it is going up. Okay, kind of hard to see, but we're almost there. I just need to pour a little more for it to get to the proper level. Almost there. Oops, overfilled just a little bit. Right now it's actually way above, or like slightly above. Anyway, I can't really pour it out, so I'm just gonna have it sit there. Hopefully it doesn't, you know, spew out when we start. But I'm gonna close this valve, and also to show you guys, so this is a, I believe the 1/2 inch connection. So which is this hose, what this hose is designed for. And I think you need to connect this side, which is not curved, onto the, let's see, or is it? Let's see. Okay, the curved side connects to the manifold. So you're connecting the non-curved side here, all right? And again, the top is a slightly thinner connection. It feels like a quarter size connection, but yeah. So I'm gonna connect everything, and I'm gonna turn on the vacuum and test the gauge to make sure the gauge is not leaking, and to make sure also the gauge is accurate, and also to make sure the vacuum is doing what it's supposed to do, which it's supposed to actually pump the low pressure to around like -30-ish. Okay, that would be the goal. Okay, and according to the instruction, do not use tools. Everything is hand tightened. As you can see, here is very grippy area for you to hand tighten everything. So just make sure it's hand tightened, and do not over tighten. Okay, do not over tighten. All right, so that's about it. Okay, and we'll connect the negative line over, or the vacuum line over here. And I'm not gonna like over tighten them. For just so you guys know, over here there's a Schrader valve. It's used for you to release the gas or purge the vacuum line when you're ready to charge. When you put the charging can over here on the other side after you finish with vacuuming, you need to actually purge until the refrigerant fills all the lines instead of the air, and then you start to recharge the system. And you'll see the system gets recharged, the liquid is gonna flow, and you can see it through the window right here, okay? So this is what this little extra hole is for. It's for you to release and purge the system. Okay, and the rest of the two lines, I am just gonna set everything up, okay? So again, according to the instruction picture, you're connecting the angled one onto the manifold. You're not using the straight lines on the other side. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to connect the low side to the low port. Again, do not mix those up. Even though they're the same size on this end, do not mix them up. And you'll see close to the end, this line would actually tend to move with your tightening. Just hold the line and tighten it a few more times. Okay, just hold the line and tighten until it kind of just stops moving. Okay, Same thing here. Once we test the system, I'm gonna go test my own Honda Clarity's AC system and to see if I need to recharge it or not. And then we're actually recharge my wife's system from vacuuming to proper recharge because her system is kind of a little bit more messed up at this point. All right, so here's pretty much the basic setup. You have your low pressure line, high pressure line, and again, you have to hand tighten those two pieces. Actually, those two pieces, you have to use a tool, maybe, or not, yep. It's all tool free. This coupler is to connect to your car. Again, check to make sure there are washers in here and you hand tighten. But if you look over here, this is actually loose. So this one, you'll probably want to tighten it just a little bit better fitted so it doesn't really, you know, leak out as bad. But rest of the line, I would suggest, again, hand tighten, okay? Hand tighten. All right, okay, and that's pretty tight. Test to see this knob works properly. So this side is actually closing the valve, and this side is opening the valve. So you can kind of know, because if you turn this way, you can see the valve is closing on the coupler right here. And if you push this way, the valve is opening, letting the air out. Same thing for here. This controls the valve here. So if you see it goes this way, then the valve is actually opening because it's actually letting the air into the system. But if you close this way, it is closing the valve. It's compressing down on this side, so nothing goes through the system, right? But anyway, it's hard for me to explain. Maybe I explained, you know, kind of the wrong way too. But just make sure you follow the proper direction. That's the most important part. This coupler installation is done. Again, just to be safe, I'm gonna have the system all closed, okay? Which means on the coupler side, I'm gonna close it by turning it counterclockwise, and on the gauge side, you're closing it by turning it clockwise. Same here, make sure it's closed. And this coupler for the low pressure, we're gonna connect it. And we are tightening everything by hand, okay? Everything by hand. Now, keep in mind, this is a cheaper kind of tool. Usually at high end, you would have a like ball joint that you can kind of control the angle a little bit. This one, you really can't control the angle. So just make sure like when you put it in, it's kind of straight and it's not twisted. So high and low are all completed. When you don't need to use those, you can have the tool just resting at the spot right here. Okay, so just have the tool resting over here. The next step, we are just going to do a vacuum line test on the gauge to make sure they're not leaking. Okay. And that pretty much just involves me connecting this to a power line and have the pump run for, you know, a minute or two, or maybe even less than that, and check the gauge. Both of those at the very beginning should not be moving. Okay, they should not be moving until I open the valve. If I don't open the valve, the gauge should not move. Okay, so let me go turn on the pump, and we can test the gauge inside. Actually, zooming a little more so you guys can see. And I'm gonna connect it to my computer right here. So it's connected. And we are going to turn it on. Hopefully no oil is spewing out. Yeah, let's just kind of make sure the area is well evacuated. Let's see. And the pump itself, you know, nothing to it. There's just the power button, and once you connect everything properly, the gauge should work properly, right? So let's turn on the pump. Again, gauge should not move, okay? Because both of those lines are closed. It's only pumping, it's only vacuuming this little line, yellow line here. Okay, didn't move, which is good. And oil level still looks okay. It's fairly quiet, okay? But again, probably because there's not much air in here to purge, and it seems to be airtight. Now I'm gonna turn on the pump, and we're gonna open up the lines, and this gauge should go down to the negative side, and this should go down as well, but there's no indication. But again, it's once I open the loop, everything should be working. Okay, so let's open the loop. Okay, I'm gonna open the low end first. All right, so when you guys are testing the gauge, as I just showed you, that's everything is pretty much set up and ready to go. I told you I want to test the pressure or the seal of the gauge to make sure the gauge itself is not actually leaking. So what you're gonna do is you're just gonna make sure all the valves are actually closed. Now it doesn't matter if those two valves are closed or not when you're testing this gauge with the vacuum seal, but again, I just want to make sure everything's closed to start with. I'm gonna rest it on the two sides over here. And right now, I want the flow to open. I want both of the areas flow to open, okay? And we already have everything connected to the pump. The pump had correct amount of oil inside already, so it's ready to go. One most important thing, okay, before you test the seal of here is to absolutely make sure this little hole is not open. If this hole is open, you're not gonna suck much thing out of the gauge, okay? Because this hole is actually connected to the entire system. If you have this hole open, nothing is gonna hold, okay? So you want to make sure this hole, the unused hole here, is properly closed on your Pittsburgh 2.5 CFM vacuum. And again, there is a little sealing stuff on the top of this little cap. When you actually just close it, it's gonna seal this hole very nicely. The next step is pretty simple. You just gonna turn on the power for a little bit. And okay, so all the valves are open, and I'm gonna turn on the power. It's sucking the air. It's not gonna make much noise because it's already sucking. So now I'm gonna actually close the vacuum. The best way to test to see the seal of the vacuum and the manifold is to have the system connected. So that way you know that the vacuum itself is also, in the long run, is not leaking any air, as well as the manifold itself. Right now it's showing, you know, a perfect vacuum because the manifold is reading at actually negative 30 PSI. Yes, negative 30 PSI. And also the high pressure side is in the negative. It doesn't have any reading, but again, both of those systems, every line is interconnected. So I'm gonna leave this system here for maybe just a couple hours. And in about 2 hours, we're gonna come back and we're gonna check the system to see if the gauge has moved or not. And then we know if the system is in a perfect seal or not. Okay, but right now everything looks fine, and I should have full confidence taking this system to my car and test my AC, you know, right now. But I just want to make sure, give it maybe 2 more hours, and we'll come back and double check. I want to show you guys the gauge readings. A perfectly healthy, you know, negative 30 PSI reading, which is the maximum that this gauge can do, okay? So see you guys in a bit. All right, guys, so it's about 2 hours and 15 minutes in. We're coming back to check this vacuum loop. And so keep in mind, you're not gonna encounter this kind of extreme situation where you have to have it, you know, be a completely vacuumed space or vacuumed area for about 2 hours. No, when you're servicing your AC, at most, you're gonna have this system in closed loop for about, I would say 5 to 10 minutes max, okay? But let's take a look and see how much pressure we've lost from the low side indicator. So remember when we started, I told you the gauge is all the way past 30. So I would assume, you know, it's negative 32 PSI. And now looking at the gauge, it's at about 28 PSI. Still, you know, pretty impressive for about 2 hours of complete vacuum. That's with the vacuum pump still attached. I would think the performance is going to be better without the actual pump attached, and it's actually going to hold the vacuum quite a lot longer as opposed to with the pump attached. Again, this is designed to pump out the vacuum. It's not designed to hold the vacuum, okay? So I would think the manifold is in excellent condition, and you know, it's well within the spec, and it's ready to be used to diagnose anybody's car's AC, right? So next section, we're gonna go to the car, and we're gonna check my car first, and then we're gonna check my wife's. But there's a hurricane, you know, nearby in Florida, so right now it's like thunderstorming and raining. We'll have to do that in, you know, in a different day. But for now, I would definitely trust this Harbor Freight Pittsburgh branded system, the vacuum pump, the 2.5 CFM vacuum pump, and the manifold for automotive AC service. And again, couple takeaways before we go to the next section is double check to see there are no extra washers and spacers and seals going around. It might be loose and left in the little holder somewhere. Just make sure every of those connectors is having a proper washer attached to it. Otherwise, your system is not going to be properly sealed, and you're going to create trouble for yourself. And second, make sure this is attached. Otherwise, if I lose this, you can see it's going to lose pressure right away, because this is a sealed system. And if you don't have this attached, it's not going to create a proper vacuum. So make sure when you attach the line, the other hole is fully sealed, okay? And that's pretty much it. I'll see you guys in the next section. All right, guys, so unfortunately my wife needs a car tomorrow, and her AC is pretty much completely toast. So we'll have to do the checkup and maybe vacuum the system tonight and even recharge it tonight. So what I'm doing is I'm gonna do a spot check on the current health of the system. Basically, you just need to hook up the lines to the high and the low, and only follow the instruction here to do the spot check. So we're gonna follow the exact instruction outlined here. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Those numbers corresponding to the correct steps that you need to do on here. So when it says 1, close all valves, you see 1, you close this valve, 1, you close this valve, and 1, you close this valve, and 1, you close this valve. And just make sure the direction is correct. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and make sure all the valves are in the closed position. Okay. The high, we're gonna make sure it's close. To close the coupler, it's counterclockwise. To close the manifold is clockwise. So don't get confused and make sure you're doing it right, okay? so this line is closed. And we're gonna check over here. This line is also closed, okay? So we checked all the valves are closed, and we checked all the connections are properly tightened. There are no loose ends. And the next step, we're gonna go to step 2, which is connect all the hoses, okay? So basically you connect, you see the number 2 here, number 2 here, number 2 here. Those are the areas you're gonna connect. You're gonna recirculate the vacuum hose right here, and you're gonna connect the blue line to the car's low pressure port and the red line to the car's high pressure port. That's step number 2, okay? So I'm gonna try to show you guys. The low port is over there. The high pressure port is right here. Again, make sure all the lines are closed fully, okay? We have both lines connected. We'll go to number 3 to spot check. Okay, so everything's connected. Connected the blue section port, red section port. So number 3 is complete. We just did that. Number 4 is to check. So you see where the number 4 is. You're gonna only open those 2 valves on the coupler. So you turn clockwise to open the low. You turn clockwise to open the high pressure. And the gauge should actually give you a rating, okay? So I'm gonna actually just show you guys the gauge, and I'm gonna turn on those ports so we can get a pressure reading. And now we're gonna turn on the high. So what can you see? The refrigerant is at an extremely low level. The low pressure is reading at less than 10. Definitely something wrong with the refrigerant. There might be a leak, and so we're actually do a vacuum check. We're actually vacuum the system from this point on, right? Because you can see the pressure over there at high is only 100, and at low, it's only at like 8 psi. So definitely something wrong. Now I'm just gonna turn off the AC system. Okay, I'm gonna turn off the car. Looking at the number, this is a V6. We need 21 ounce of refrigerant, 3.4 ounce of oil. I don't think the oil, I don't think I need to replace the oil, but we definitely need to vacuum the system and replace the refrigerant to make sure it is running properly, okay? All right guys, so I have the car sitting, and I'm gonna do one last start of the car, have the car running on max AC, and just to check, to double confirm one more time on the pressure, and then we will purge the system and also use the vacuum to make sure the system is in the negative pressure before we putting the correct amount of refrigerant and properly charge the compressor, okay? All right, so that's pretty much confirmed running pressure, which is less than 10 psi, and also the high side is about 100 psi. It's probably good. That just basically means the refrigerant level is low, and we need to properly charge it from a negative pressure, from a vacuum state. So yes, I'm gonna turn off the car, and I'm gonna try to get the refrigerant properly recycled, And then we come back, we're gonna use the vacuum pump, which I already prepared over here. I'm gonna show you guys. Right here. And we're gonna connect the yellow line to the vacuum pump. We're gonna suck the system to make sure it is vacuum. And we're gonna actually have the system run for about 20 to 30 minutes to make sure all the water and the moisture in the system gets boiled and carried away by the compressor oil, and the system is truly vacuum. We also need to check to see if the system is leaking or not by keeping it in a vacuum state again, and just check to make sure the system itself is not leaking. Okay. All right, so what I'm going to do next is I'm actually going to close both low and high port right here. Okay. By turning it counterclockwise. Make sure it's closed. Turning counterclockwise. And again, make sure it's fully closed. And now we're gonna hook up the vacuum line. So first thing first, let's see. We're gonna come back here, get the line out. So remember, most important thing is those two knobs only controls the flow of the yellow line to the system. Okay, this knob have nothing to do with the gauge measuring the pressure and also the pressure going out from the red line. It has nothing to do with that. This only opens this line. Okay. So with that said, now I'm gonna connect this one, which before it was in a vacuum state, so no air is leaking in and out. And now with all the valves closed, I'm gonna actually unscrew this. And I'm gonna connect this to, again, the same 1/4-inch port right here on the compressor or the vacuum pump. Again, make sure you already have correct level of oil in here so the vacuum pump could run properly. Okay. Hand tighten. Okay. And find a suitable space. Probably pretty good. All right, and it's still got some pressure in there. What I can do is I actually just going to open the valve, and it's actually probably going to release the pressure in here. Okay. And if I open this, it also discharged. So I'm gonna try to turn on the vacuum. See if this loop would actually get into negative pressure again. Okay, which it is, so that's good. And let's see, so now it's at negative like 20, 22. Let me try to find a way to get whatever's remaining, like extremely low refrigerant out, and then we can start the vacuum purging process. Okay. All right, I have the whole system connected, and there really isn't much refrigerant left in the system. So I pretty much just opened up the valve and a puff of air came out, and that's pretty much it. The system right now is at 0 pressure. So I am going to actually close all the loops, open up all the valves. Make sure the valves are open. And I am going to start the vacuum pump for a while and let all the moisture and water get sucked out. Okay, so I'll probably come back after a while, probably 20 minutes or so, and see where the vacuum is at. So you can see it's actually putting about negative 30 psi for the system line. And we are pretty much halfway through with getting the system prepped. I'll come back again after a while of the vacuum state. We're gonna close all the loops, and then we're gonna get ready and prep the yellow line for recharge of the refrigerant. Then while it's vacuuming, we're gonna go inside and prep the refrigerant, and I'm gonna let you guys know what you need for the refrigerant side of things. Okay, so see you guys inside. All right, so right now the pressure is at negative maybe 31 to 30. We need to make sure that the pressure doesn't go back to you know, the room temperature, or the pressure doesn't go back as much after about 10-15 minutes. And then I'm going to continue vacuuming for a while, again just to double check no leaks in the system. Okay. All right, so while we're inside, we need to prep the refrigerant. Okay, the Mustang 2015 year model uses R134a refrigerant, and this doesn't have any additive in it, and you can get this pretty much everywhere, and it's like about $10 a can. The 2015 Mustang, as you just saw in the spec, needs 21 ounce of the refrigerant and 3.4 ounce of oil. Now, again, I don't believe it needs any oil because I don't really observe any kind of leakage. So I'm not gonna add the oil this time, but I did bought those oil charge refill. This is a 2 ounce PHA oil with about 1 ounce of R134a. I think I'm gonna return those and actually just get regular PHA oil and add it to the yellow vacuum line before I hook it up to the recharge with the refrigerant. So that's what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna return those. Today we're gonna only focus on the R134a prep, okay? You need, if your refrigerant is not exact 24 ounce, you need some sort of a scale, okay? And you need your can. This can is 12 ounce, you know, it's by weight. So you open this, you turn on the scale, and you put this can on there. It's probably gonna give you 15.55, yeah, something like that. It's kind of precise, 15.5 to 15.6. It's in between that. This is the weight of this can. And they try to make it consistent, okay? So there really isn't much difference. Oh, this one actually had quite a lot of difference. Let's try this one. So 15.50, like 0.05 ounce really isn't much of a big deal for this, but what you need to know is, so if it's 15.55 and you have 12 ounce of refrigerant on there, you need to just keep in mind, once this can gets close to empty, it's going to be 3.55 ounce. Another easy way I'm going to show you guys is what I actually going to use is when you put this on here, most scale have a tar ray option. I don't know how to say it, but I'm just gonna call it tar ray. If you press that, it's gonna reset the entire weight of this can. Whatever's on there is gonna reset to 0. So I'm gonna press tar ray, and it says tar ray, and it's gonna go 0. So when you recharge for the second can, you want to closely monitor the scale because it's gonna go lighter and lighter and lighter, and you want to stop. The Mustang needs, I think what, 21 ounce? Yes, 21 ounce. So the Mustang needs 21 ounce, and this can is, you know, 12 ounce. The first can, we already had 12 ounce on there. The second can have 12. In total of 24, you need 23. So you want to wait until this goes to about, so 12 minus 3 is what? 12 minus 3 is about like 9 ounce. So you want to stop at around 9 ounce weight. That means exactly 9 ounce has gone through the can. Okay, when you tar it, it's 0 with no air out. And as the air comes out, as the refrigerant comes out, it's gonna get, you know, lighter. So it's a minus. You want to stop exactly at around 9, okay, for the second can. And that's basically how you're gonna, or this is my way of measuring the weight if it's not an exact 24 ounce. which is this Mustang, which needs 21 ounce. So now I know. So with that in mind, when we have the scale out on a flat surface, we're gonna go and stop at around 9 ounce out, and we're gonna stop right there, and that's gonna be the exact precise refrigerant the system needs, and it's gonna ensure it's gonna run cold and run stable for quite a long time before you have to do this again. Okay, so yes, so that would be the proper way of recharging the Ford Mustang. This is a 2015 year model, but any other year model is going to be very similar. Ford is kind of known for having really bad air compressors that leaks air, or sometimes just, you know, downright stop working. My wife had 2 Mustangs, actually 3 Mustangs. All of them had AC issues. Okay, all of them. Okay, so it's not a question of, you know, maybe. It's almost like a question of when it's going to go bad. All right, so the vacuum is still pulling outside, and we're gonna have it run for a little bit. We're gonna go back outside, and we're gonna actually recharge the system using the method that I just described. Remember, it's the Tari method. So this one is 0 ounce. This one is probably gonna have a slight difference, or actually the number 1 can. Yeah, okay, so now they're about the same. So you're just gonna aim for the second can to -9 ounce, and that's where we're gonna go. Okay, I just want to make sure the 2 can is about the same weight. All right, which is excellent. So let's go outside in the next section. All right, so one last thing I forgot to mention is to service or to flow the refrigerant through the can, you need a refrigerant opening and closing valve. This I also got from Harbor Freight. This is about, I think, $7.50. And again, seems well built, brass fitting and all metal. So you need to actually attach this to the first can. Yes, attach this to the first can, and we're gonna connect this end to the yellow hose. And that's when we're gonna purge the yellow hose and then charge the system. Okay, so let's go back and get started. Checking the vacuum at about, this is probably like 15 minutes. I went inside, did some video recording. We checked the vacuum, it's still pretty good. So we can kind of assume that the system is have no leaks, or at least no significant leaks, and we can go ahead and continue vacuum it for another 20 minutes, get the water vapor out, and we're ready to recharge. Okay guys, so about 15-20 minutes here. What you can see here is the oil. The vacuum is doing fantastic job at pulling the water out of the system, and you can see the oil is actually like bubbling and boiling up. That's the water being pulled from the system, and that's exactly what we want to see. And it's not, you know, it's kind of like warm to the touch. It's not like super hot, so I would say like very tolerable. And this side is actually a little bit more hot, like hotter. Okay, but the refrigerant level is fine, or the oil level is fine. And let's check the vacuum. Still perfectly at -32 psi. So yeah, we are right on our way. I'm gonna have it run for maybe just another 10 to 15 minutes, and we're stopped. So remember, once you use those oil, and next time you want to vacuum pump something, you might want to use fresh oil. If the current oil is not clear anymore and it's gonna have a whole bunch of build up, you definitely want to use new oil. Okay, so that's just for the next vacuum job. But when you do the first vacuum job from start to finish on any of the cars, the next car is going to be much easier. So if you have multiple cars, it will be very, very easy to service AC. And with the proper manifold gauge, it's also very easy to diagnose the issues. For example, like the low side is high, the high end is low, the high end is high, and the low end is high, or the low end is high, but the high end is low. All those scenarios will give you a exact solution and ping pong you to the exact place to service and replace parts as necessary. All right, so I'm really glad I actually bought the manifold and the vacuum pump from the Harbor Freight. And again, this is the Pittsburgh brand, supposedly the low-end, you know, tools that low-end professionals use, but obviously home mechanic, those are the perfect tools to service any kind of vehicle. And it's not very cheap. it's about, again, $170 plus refrigerant at about $10 a can. So total cost to, you know, properly charge your AC by yourself and buy your own tools is less than $200. But that's the initial cost. I'd say it's totally worth it. If you have to go to the mechanic, usually AC service costs is upwards of $300, $400, even $500 and up for, you know, luxury brand cars and stuff. But every car works exactly the same in terms of service. All right. So next step, we're gonna come back and we're gonna charge the system. All right, the bubbling pretty much stopped, and I'm gonna turn off the compressor. Actually, I'm gonna close all the valves first before I turn off the compressor, okay? Most definitely, you want to keep the high pressure side closed for now. And we will actually also close this. And I'm going to turn off the compressor. So right now, this line is not going through both of, you know, the things, so it's not gonna do anything. Let's see. All right, and the system should still maintain a negative pressure. I mean, I could have the valves closed by turning clockwise before I start charging the system, okay? All right, and also closing the high, turning clockwise. So the entire system, the entire AC line is vacuumed, and including all those lines here, okay? So it's showing the pressure, and we're gonna follow the recharge steps. So we're almost at the bottom of this, okay? So we have 2 cans ready, and we double check. We need exact 21 ounce of refrigerant. So for the second can, we're gonna put in about 9 ounce. So 3 ounce short of 12 ounce, which comes to, let's see, 12 plus 9 equals 21, yes. And for the first can, we don't need the scale. We just need to use the proper connector, remember? So we're gonna connect it on the first can. And again, make sure the valve is fully closed. Okay. All right, and actually, nope. Make sure the valve is fully open, because so the valve on the top, you're gonna turn all the way counterclockwise. Otherwise, it's gonna puncture through this system and then make the air come out. So you want to make sure it is counterclockwise, turn all the way, and then you can turn this on here. Now the good thing with the newer R134a cans is it's self-sealing, so you don't need the additional adapter. When you remove this, it's not gonna leak air out, and it's gonna close itself. And right now, if I start turning, it's gonna have the air coming out. So the first thing first we're gonna do is actually purging this yellow line out of the actual air, because this yellow line is exposed and it's gonna have air in there, and we are going to purge it. So we're gonna connect, again, we're gonna, you know, nothing to do with the gauge yet. We're gonna make sure the line is connected with the washers properly attached. And we are going to turn this, okay, we're going to turn this clockwise to open the line. And you can hear the sound. It is in here, but there are actually air in there. So we need to purge it. In order to purge the line, we just need to press on that little thing. I'm going to use the little key until you see the, like, kind of a liquid foam coming out, okay? And that would be the refrigerant. think it should be enough. Let's see. All right, so next we are going to, so this line is, I would say it's pressurized, it's ready to go. We're gonna turn on the car and we're going to open both of the high and low valves. And then we're gonna slowly open the blue valve. Okay, open it by turning counterclockwise. And you'll see this gauge hopefully goes up and the compressor kicks in. If the compressor kicks in, it's gonna start sucking the air from the vacuum line into the blue line and into the system. You don't touch this. This, you only use it for when you are, I believe, purging the system and recycling the refrigerant. So don't ever keep this line always closed. Don't ever touch it. You only worry about this little line over here, okay? And of course, the actual valve right here. So now I'm gonna actually close the valve. I'm gonna start the car. Okay, we're going to check the instruction one last time. So right now, we already did step 1, 2, 3, which is connect everything and make sure all the valves are right now closed. Number 4, we're gonna actually open the valve here. We're gonna open the valve here, and we're gonna open this valve as well. And of course, have your R134a connected and the valve slowly opened, okay? When the car starts. So number 4, the first thing you're gonna do is turn on engine, allow it to warm up, and then turn on AC. All right, so that's what we're gonna do next. Now we're gonna turn on the valve here. And we are going to turn on the line, both ends. And we are going to turn this finally and let the thing recharge, okay? So right now the compressor is not on yet. We might have to manually open up the fuse box and trigger the compressor if it doesn't run, because sometimes it's like a protective mechanism. When you recharge the system, it's vacuum, it tries not to overrun the compressor. So right now the system is actually not running, okay? The compressor is still not on yet. Let me go check. So I'm going to turn off the car and we are going to manually start the compressor by jump start the fuse box on the compressor side, okay? All right guys, so I got the relay out. Unfortunately, this really doesn't tell me which one needs to be triggered. However, there are some clues. It looks like those two are actually has been drawing power and kind of is the color is darkened a little bit. The other two is not the power connecting relay. So I know those two pins are probably what's causing the clutch to kick in. And I'm just gonna use one of my little snap ring pliers to actually just put it in the relay box over there, and then just try to kickstart the clutch. And once that's kick-started, we would be able to see the value of the gauge actually from the low side drops, because it's gonna properly suck all the refrigerant into the system and have the system running and charging. All right, so I'm gonna give it a try. Hopefully it works, but I'm gonna leave the video on just, you know, in case it works. when I put the jumper or the metal onto end of the relay, it actually sparked. So that means that is the clutch relay. So I'm gonna start the engine and I'm gonna force start the clutch, and again I'm gonna make sure all the ports are open. And we're going to try to charge the system again. So I was right. The moment I jump started the clutch, the AC compressor kicked in, and now it's actually charging the system. You can see the pressure drops, and again the pressure starts to build up on the high end. So we should be on our way to getting this system charged. Okay. You can see the frost building up over here, and just don't burn your hand or frostbite your hand. You always have a pair of gloves. I just put the relay back in there, the actual relay, so now it can function properly, okay? you know, with half refrigerant, the car is already ice cold. And we're gonna try to just have this totally run out. Looks like it's already out. So I'm gonna take the this can off, and we're gonna put a new can in there. But before we do that, we want to make sure again the line is closed. Actually, I think it should be okay. Just in case, the line. We have about 4 ounces left in this can, so I'm gonna use this can again and get the remaining 4 ounces, you know, in as much as possible. I'm gonna lower the stage, and we're gonna do it again. It's almost out. We're going to close the valve, turning counterclockwise, and open it up. And we're going to wait again. So it has about 1 ounce left in here. And now we're going to start the next can. Again, the aim is to have it run as close to 21 as possible, I would say at this point, because it looks like it's kind of hard to get the last 1 ounce out of the system. But regardless, you guys should know the process. And I'm going to connect the hose again. And we're going to start, okay? can see the fluid is actually going there, and it's being gasalized, I guess. The pressure continues to build up, okay, on the high end. All right, so let's take a final look. Right now system 150 psi, and on the high pressure and low pressure at 30, I have about 21 ounce of refrigerant, which is proper amount of refrigerant putting in the system. So this is really the controls the clutch. I put it back, and I'm going to close the relay box. At this point, I am going to close all the lines. Counterclockwise to fully close it. Counterclockwise to fully close it. Okay. And let's go into the car. I'm sure right now the car is ice cold. Okay, ice cold. Wow, it's almost freezing. So yes, this actually worked perfect. It actually fixed all the issues with this AC. Ice cold. Oh my God, what a difference. Excellent. So that's how you know, pretty much properly service your AC system. For most of the cars, I would advise you, spend less than $200, but get a proper job. Those refills might work for, just a little bit, but in the long run, I think you still want the system to be at the proper refrigerant level. It's gonna last for much longer compared to a recharge, which might overcharge the system and make the system totally mess up, okay? But we did not add any oil today. The PAG oil, I might consider next time adding some oil if it still has issues, but I don't think it's gonna get any issue in the short run, okay? It's not gonna get any issue in the short run. All right, so all the valves are closed, including the manifold and the little thing over here, and I'm just going to pop it open, disconnect, pop it open, disconnect, and that's pretty much it. So we had about 21 ounces of refrigerant in there, so each of those, and you want to make sure that those doesn't get super dirty, okay? So I'm gonna put this right away, connecting back into the system. You can see there are a lot of condensation, extremely humid over here, with proper tools. It didn't give me any issue at all, and I followed pretty much the instruction the entire way. Each of those cans have about 1 ounce of refrigerant or 1.5 ounce of refrigerant left, so which makes it perfect, to get to 21 ounce as specified. And we don't have to worry about the oil because I never replaced any components in here, so it should still have the proper amount of oil. And yeah, that's it. The vacuum pump worked great. It actually sucked all the moisture out of the system and ran for about 35 minutes, I think, before I turned it off, and no issues at all. So yeah, Harbor Freight, Pittsburgh, Manifold gauge for your car, and the Pittsburgh 2.5 CFM vacuum pump all works great together to fix your AC. Hope you guys found this video helpful, and if you did, do hit the like button or subscribe to the channel. I will have more car maintenance videos coming out for you guys.